It is the Blue Room. It is the instant match reaction for Everton 5, Fleetwood Town 2. Getting used to saying that scoreline, of course. Joining me to go through that pretty uneventful game, really, Mark Mosey and Rob Vera. And do you know what, lads? We'll start off with what we just saw from pretty much the last action of the game. Niels Nkounkou, my word, Mose, absolute filth with that back heel to set up Moise Keane. And he was fantastic all night again, wasn't he?
He looks like you need to go to Marseille and ask what they were thinking for the whole of his time there, for selling him to Everton for such a cut price. Honestly, the assurance you get from watching him, I think you go back a few weeks and you think, well, if anything, God forbid, was to happen to Luca Digne, this club would be in real trouble. And the biggest compliment you could pay to the lad is that you feel so content with him being in an Everton starting 11. The way he marauds up and down that left-hand side, his ability to create connections with players who are in front of him or alongside him, regardless of who they are. He's already had Anthony Gordon, Bernard, Richarlison, Luca Digne playing as a makeshift centre-half alongside him. Everything looks just seamless for him. He looks totally unfazed by obviously new challenges, and as much as they have been relatively mediocre in terms of standard at the moment, he looks as though someone who is progressing up the path very, very quickly. I know he was brought in to predominantly this season anyway play a key role in the under-23 squad, but already 2 games of Carabao Cup football in, it looks as though that is way beyond him now. So you hope that his progression obviously continues. In a backward way, we hope that we don't see him too much in the Premier League, because we know that we want Luca Digne to play every single game possible. But it's so nice to know that the strength in depth, which we all know is required to go far in tournaments like the Carabao Cup, is absolutely there.
Yeah, I think there's maybe a bit of recency bias, Rob, but in regards to Nkounkou, it's to come off watch a game like that where Everton have won 5-2, or star forward scored a couple of goals. A few other lads we've been talking about a lot scored a lot of goals, and Twitter, for my part, apart from Jordan Pickford, of course, who we'll come on to talk about a little bit later, is just full of excitement and praise for this lad, and to come over here, from Marseille, to have come over here in such difficult circumstances with the way the world is at the moment, to be given games as a 19-year-old, and sort of have the chance there to be not replace Leighton Baines, so to speak, but become the secondary left back in the side. He's just taken it all completely in his stride, hasn't he? And we've questioned Marcel Brands a lot over the last few weeks, and we've asked about his role at the football club and the sort of things he does, but it looks as though he picked up a steal with this lad. Because you're already looking at it saying, if he doesn't play another game for Everton again, they're going to triple. They're going to get more than 300, 400, 500% of what they paid for him.
Yeah, wasn't he technically a free agent too?
I think he was £500,000, wasn't he? Cost us.
Yeah.
West Ham paid $5 million for him tomorrow.
What?
Yeah. Well, look, everyone. You guys have all been dying for Marcel Brands to find a young, obscure, hard to pronounce kid who's really good, who didn't cost much money. So here you go. There's Niels Nkounkou. Maybe I think he's going to do great for the under 23s this year, right? Okay. No, look, he's been fantastic, and I think that, in all honesty, sometimes it's hard to know what to make of performances like this from young players against these sorts of sides, because you can do the thing where you're like, well, but it's Fleetwood Town, or well, it's Salford. But my counter to that would be, on the other side of the pitch, John Joe Kenny has just returned from a year in the Bundesliga, and he didn't make a mistake tonight, but I didn't really notice him at all either. Some players just have it, and some don't. And I'm not trying to make this about John Joe Kenny. He was fine. It's just that Nkounkou is one of those players who has stepped in and looked at this opportunity to get meaningful time because Everton had not really prioritized a backup left back. And frankly, they've made that a moot point because he's just come in and not only produced, but he's done so stylishly in an electric way. I was really worried going into the season about what it was going to look like without having that kind of comfort blanket of Leighton Baines behind Luca Digne. But now I'm just kind of thinking, man, what kind of creative ways can we find to get this guy in the lineup? If you're, you could, I mean, let's be honest too, we've only got 2 fit center halves. So we're only really 1 injury away from all kinds of weird scenarios. Obviously that's not ideal, but Nkounkou looks like an absolute electric talent. And hey, we've wanted Everton to find young, exciting players to bring in that people hadn't heard of, and that were really kind of fulfilling the Marcel Brand's Jedi Master promise. And I think that this example right here is definitely one of his big finds, and I'm really excited.
Yeah, let us know if you're watching this on YouTube, your thoughts on Nkunkou's performance. And let us know your thoughts was Everton's man of the match tonight as well, because I think there are a lot of really good performances out there. Not many, like I said, apart from the goalkeeper, who probably dipped below 7 out of 10 today for the performance. A lot of accomplished displays from the Blues, who of course are into the next round now, where they'll face West Ham. Just on the performance overall, Mose, I think we have got to take this into separate entities, really, haven't we? Because the scoreline and the position Everton were in the game at one point of 3-2, it looked a little bit dicey, and people were starting to get a little bit worried by it. But I think if you're judging the outfield players as a whole, for 80-90% of that match, I thought they played really well. They controlled the game. They were creative. They were fluid in their attacking play. Balance in a lot of areas of the pitch as well, and a lot of players who came into the side who we've been looking at saying, well, the gauntlet's been laid down to you now effectively, because you've got to start producing with these new signings. In fairness to the likes of Iwobi, the likes of Bernard, they seized that opportunity tonight.
Yeah, I think if as a neutral you turn on tonight and know that it's 3-2, you get rather undeservingly excited about the prospect of what is going to be a really tight standard cup tie feel. I don't really think it ever had that. I think bar the obvious mistakes at the back, we were pretty much in control for the duration. I think if Calvert-Lewin puts us 3-0 up just before half time, then it potentially gets even more chaotic for Fleetwood. But disappointing, obviously, that we were so capable in affording a couple of goals away. And there is a little bit of that feel for me, in that Everton are not going to be the team who keep consistent clean sheets this season. That is probably forced on me, that opinion, by the fact that our defence is obviously a little bit ropey at the moment in terms of availability. But as you rightly said, on the ball and going forward, we consistently look dangerous. People like Alex Iwobi and Bernard, these are the stages where you expect them to put their foot down and really force the issue, not only on the night in order to get the results, but in order to justify their place in the squad as well. And there are refreshing moments in games like this where you see where some players make sense. Someone like Bernard, for example, who, regardless of the game time and his physicality and other things that have been thrown at him, if you put him on the edge of the box with the ball at his feet, I feel an assurance that he will make the correct decision. We were all calling goal before the ball even bounced at his feet tonight, because there is that assurance about him being clinical in front of goal, consistent, reliable in terms of finding a man. It's not always like that with other players in this squad, but we know that in this competition we need to try and, against our better judgment, to consistently have Calvert-Lewin and Richarlison and James Rodriguez involved. And as much as we want to see those players, there needs to be an element of squad rotation. I think it's a good all-round performance. I like seeing players playing out of position and seeing how they adapt. And in particular, the one for me tonight, as much as it wasn't a glamorous performance, I looked at someone like Luca Digne at centre-half and thought, as much as it wasn't a great technical performance from Digne, because quite honestly, it didn't have to be, it struck me as a captain's performance. It looked as though he really led from the back, and obviously there's a great deal on his shoulders in terms of bringing on someone like Nkounkou. And I think he looks so comfortable at left back because there is someone like Luca Digne in that effective captain's role. So I think, yeah, bar the obvious at the back, there's a general feeling of positivity about the club at the moment. You hear commentators over here, Rob on Sky Sports, waxing lyrical about the feel-good factor about this club at the moment. It feels like regardless of competition or regardless of opposition, there is an ability of Everton to look within and think we are capable of winning this game. And the fact that we're putting, 10 goals in 2 games, regardless of standard, is way beyond any expectations that any Evertonian could have had on the back of what was a really troubling post-lockdown period at the end of last season.
Yeah, who are the standouts for you, Rob? You know, we know what Richarlison can do to a degree. You know, he's good in the air, he finishes chances, and we've seen him do that for a long time. But I think the one for me, and I saw you tweeting about him during the game as well, to sort of preempt what you're going to say here, is Bernard. And I sort of looked at his performance tonight, and I think now with the structure Everton have got potentially in that midfield with Alan and Doucouré, the one position that potentially could be up for grabs in there is that one to the left of that 3, where Gomez has been playing, where you've got a bit more license to push forward and create and pick the ball up. And sort of looked at that and watching that tonight and thinking, if Everton are at home against the side that struggle sitting deep in the Premier League, or the 0-0 and they're chasing a goal, or trying to find a way back into the game, then I think Bernard could be really useful bringing on and just putting in that positioning to get on the ball a little bit deeper, get your head up and find those little passes, the sort of things that we saw him play tonight. And I think he obviously had a tough end to last season, played in a few different positions, but you were right what you said on Twitter in regards to whenever he's been given a chance so far in pre-season or this season, he's looked purposeful, he's looked switched on, he's looked sharp.
Well, yeah, and I don't want to oversimplify it, but I mean, a lot of what you've just said about the theory of the case for Bernard is what you could also say about Alex Iwobi too. They both came in, and again, you can only play who's in front of you, but I think we're seeing more evidence that their particular set of skills, and to talk about Bernard particularly, that's that scenario that you outline of us being in a game playing against a side that's going to put everyone behind the ball and just kind of need us to unlock things. That was always sort of the theory with Bernard. At least when we first signed him, I thought, well, he's going to probably play a lot in those sort of scenarios. He'll play in the middle a little bit. He has been absolutely wasted. His talent and skill set have been wasted on the wing for me. I'd say the exact same thing about Alex Iwobi. They've both been trying to shoehorn those guys in on the left-hand side, and you put them in the middle where they are not in their particular scenarios, it's their ability on the ball to kind of pick out these little short passes and to kind of stay with it, and to kind of make those plays in tight spaces that I think is more in line with what their particular strengths are compared to, the type of thing that you see from Anthony Gordon, though I think Gordon long-term can play anywhere across the midfield. You see why Anthony Gordon, with his size and with his particular speed and, his relative physicality is kind of a good positional player on the wing. I don't think that's the case with Bernard and with Iwobi. Again, as Mark alluded to, we're going to need these players for these cup games, but I guarantee, to your point about, is there a position in that first team, league side that is potentially going to have some opportunities? Yeah, you could say it's Gomes, where sometimes a Bernard or an Iwobi might come in that position. I would also say that really theoretically, any of those three are going to need to sit at some point. You're going to need to rotate guys in and find ways to make them useful. But particularly Doucouré and Gomes, I think there will be times where those guys, will be rested. We'll pick up a knock, what have you. We've got to have guys that, regardless of the scenario, and again, this is a League One side, and I understand that, they need to be able to carry with them multiple consecutive performances where they've come in and made an impact, and they've played well, and they've gained some confidence, because I think that really translates well into every subsequent performance. And with Bernard, tonight was really the best version of him. And it was him finally getting that goal. I thought it's been coming, it feels like, for weeks now, and he really deserved it. But I just thought he was great all around. And the effort, that was the other thing too, the effort from those guys, and really all across the board, with maybe one exception, was certainly there tonight.
He's so refined on the ball, Bernard, that you think, I'm so confident that if he starts a game, he creates an opportunity where you think that's a really good goal scoring chance. He's got that ability to see people ahead of him, and I think the nature of our strongest attacking lineup with James and Richarlison is that it's quite often a very intricate build-up play, whereas you've got someone like Alex Iwobi who is so much more raw than Bernard in terms of it does feel like a little bit of a struggle at times to create those sorts of chances. I mean, you don't, for example, see someone like Bernard hitting a shot from 35 yards and hitting the crossbar. And in the same breath, you don't see Alex Iwobi being able to play that chipped ball over the top for Richarlison. As Rob said, it's nice to have these weapons in your arsenal. But I think out of the two, if you were going to pick someone who Everton are going to have to look to at varying points of the season, it is someone like Bernard, because we know the job that Doucouré and Alan can do, but he is the man who just brings that third central midfield position 15 to 20 yards forward more, just being able to be that link with the front three. Andre Gomez, we hope, is going to potentially be that person. Abdoulaye Doucouré to an extent. But in terms of being more of an out-and-out attacking midfielder, I think Bernard is clearly the option. I think Alex Iwobi kind of had to force himself into the game tonight. He looked a little bit petrified of the football for the first 20 minutes, which was a bit strange. But I think that the opportunity that he got and hitting the crossbar kind of opened him up a little bit. But certainly positives from some of the midfield players who a lot was starting to write off towards the end of last season.
Yeah, I thought Iwobi played well, to be fair, tonight as well. I think you're right. I think early on he struggled to sort of link up with John Joe Kenny. They didn't really feel like a natural partnership on the right-hand side. Them two. It would have been the first time they played together on that side, of course, wouldn't it? And obviously a lot of stuff was coming down the right-hand side, but I think he plays the pass in the build-up to Bernard's goal into Gordon, which is really smart. He obviously scores himself, and I think he's just... Sometimes the back
heel assists, Matt.
Back heel assist,
yeah, that was beautiful.
Yeah, that was wonderful. And you watch him do stuff like that, and he's strong in the box. He can hold it up well, and he comes in off that line well sometimes. And I like the idea of Alex Iwobi and what he can potentially offer, because when he plays well and he shows what he's all about, he is a little bit different to your conventional attacking midfielder or wide player. It's just getting him in the team and getting that consistently from him. And, he's done himself no harm tonight whatsoever. But I think we've seen in the past that he has a game like this and then he'll come in another game further down the line and he won't quite be on it. So I suppose it's the same for all these players, and it's finding that consistency. These players have all shown these flashes before. You've got to be able to find some consistency in what they do. Just quickly read through some of the comments. We're going to come on to talk about Jordan Pickford next, after I read through some of these. So if you've got any thoughts on him, which I'm sure plenty of you do, leave them in the comments below and I'll read through them. Very first comment from Tufi saying, I think we've got the two best left backs in the league. I don't think anyone would disagree with that. Absolutely. Live event, great attitude shown to come back every time they conceded. Pickford must go. Gordon looks like a genuine quality player. We haven't even mentioned Anthony Gordon, but coming on again. Really involved, and you would have been disappointed, Rob, not to have been in the starting 11, particularly after going and knocking on Carlo's door. Maybe he was thinking on the bench at the start of the game. That might not have been the best idea, but definitely had the bit between his teeth when he came on again tonight.
Yeah, it was so surprising because that story, how the clubs will always float these little interesting stories from behind the scenes, and I thought, well, gosh, they're not going to float that story about Anthony Gordon being upset about not playing and then not start him tonight, but lo and behold, they did, and we were all kind of curious about the lineup in general. I think we all kind of thought it was a bit awkward, but I mean, they came out and played really well, so it's hard to argue with it too much. But yeah, Anthony Gordon, once again, and you've mentioned this before several times, Matt, that he seems like a player who in many ways is uniquely positioned to come onto the pitch as a sub in a game and just make things happen. It is the way that he gets, he's a very positive player in terms of getting towards the attacking net and getting balls in and taking shots. I mean, he's just someone who's going to make those things happen. And again, tonight, I don't know if he had 2 assists, if there's a hockey assist in there somewhere, but essentially he was involved from the get-go, and absolutely fantastic. And I think what'll be really interesting moving forward with these performances is how you evaluate this and then say, all right, who's going to be coming off the bench in the league. I would be shocked at this point. Maybe shock's the wrong word, because we've got some kind of weird positional issues with, lacking a center half. So maybe you have to accommodate somewhere else, but it feels like he's earned his way at least into the squad for the game against Palace.
Yeah. He's got some those. Yeah.
I just love the fearless positivity. So often we've seen not only Everton players, but footballers in general who play out wide. And I think Richarlison is quite often guilty of this, whereby they'll get on the ball in really positive situations and square a fullback up, but don't really have the ability to keep the pace of the game going and sprint with the ball. Whereas every time Anthony Gordon gets on it, he looks as though he wants to take that fullback to task every single time, try and beat him inside, try and get to the byline. His constant thought is how do I impact the opposition's goal? And I know that really sounds basic for an attacking player, but he's got quite an individual style. I think the one thing that we haven't seen from him so far is developing understandings with other players around him. We spoke about Nkounkou and Richarlison, and it all looks quite natural. Whereas I think with Anthony Gordon, because he's so intrinsically positive that every time he gets on the ball, he thinks, I'm going to score a goal here. And maybe that may change after his first Everton goal. He looks as though someone who is already desperate to make that sort of massive impact, which obviously his first goal will be. But I think the key thing you've said is that he perfectly fits his place in the squad at the moment. He doesn't necessarily have to have the understanding with other players and be part of that team build going forward. I know that sounds crazy to say, but his reason for being on that pitch at the moment is to change football games for Everton's better. And if his way of doing that is to be sort of relentlessly positive going forward with the ball on his own, then let the lad develop that way. And the maturity that we need later will definitely come with years.
Just before we go on to speak about Pickford, one of my favourite comments so far, Bradley EFC. Is this what Mosey looks like? Sounds like he looked like David Baddiel.
I don't know that reference.
I was going to say I'll take that, but I absolutely won't.
Yeah, for any more American or New Colombian viewers, I don't think anyone will get that one. But if he said no harm, fair dues. Jordan Pickford. I mean, I'll come to you first on this one, Rob. I've just seen it again on Sky here in the background while I've been doing this, the first one. And to be honest, it sort of looks like the striker gives up a little bit on the chase because he sees Pickford got time to clear it away and thinks that it's going to just go up the pitch. And then he sort of shapes to take that second touch and the two players close in on him. And, I've seen a lot of people say, I had someone on Twitter say to me, this is just as much Michael Keane's fault for that goal as it is for Jordan Pickford. But I think he's just got to ultimately clear his lines. And then the second one is just the whole thing is indicative of a goalkeeper that's totally unsure of himself at the moment. Unsettling defenders and his own players by going to come for the cross initially, then sprinting back. And then, let's be honest, the shot straight at him. And he finds a way of somehow fudging it into the corner. And listen, we're not being hyperbolic with this at all. This is not having a go and giving stick to a player who's made a couple of mistakes in a game and we're saying cast him aside. Now, this has been a long running problem for a long time, and in a season where, at the start of a season rather, where we're all getting very excited about what this Everton team can do. We're into the last 16 of a cup competition. We've won our first 2 league games. We've got some wonderful players. What Jordan Pickford's performance tonight will probably plant a few seeds of doubt in the mind of a few Blues and temper some expectations, because it's just becoming a regular thing this now, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, look, you can chalk up a weird freak moment here and there as just the way that the ball bounces sometimes. But this is, this has been, having these sorts of kind of mental errors and just a complete, almost like the light switch got turned off for a minute on, these moments of, I don't know, panic, poor decision making, poor execution, etc. There's just too many mistakes. It's a position that can be very cruel at times because of the way in which that position is evaluated. On one hand, there are goals that they won't be blamed for a lot of the time, but when the goals that they give up are as bad as some of the ones that Pickford has given up, and specifically the impact that it has, I'm not worried about, like at the end of the day, it's not really important whether or not the Everton supporters are super happy with Jordan Pickford. It's about whether or not his performances, it's not about unnerving us. It's about unnerving his own, the 10 guys in front of him. And I think that once you start as a central defender, or really anyone in a position in front of a keeper, once you start having that seed of doubt about your keeper, it has begins to have a domino effect on, do I step up here? Do I do, how conservative do I have to be? And really, you don't want those guys having to think like that. But the bottom line is that in a game like this, it didn't ultimately hurt us from the standpoint that we won the tie. But what it did do, and I think Patty was really astute in pointing this out, is that we took a game that was completely dominated by Everton, where we were really comfortable, and we had an opportunity, to get Calvert-Lewin off at halftime, and probably we're going to get Richarlison off pretty quickly after that. I mean, frankly, if Calvert-Lewin scores that goal right at the end of the first half, maybe they both go off. I don't know. Once you allow it to become a game again, then you're having to stress that much more, extend minutes more for players that you didn't want to play as much, and so on. And it just has this detrimental effect. And the real question, I think, that I think people have been asking, but now that we're actually in a position to be good, which I know seems really foreign to us, but let's be honest, we have a real opportunity to push for top 6 if we have fitness, which is true for every side, right? What is the biggest threat to a game with margins as fine as this? I think Jordan Pickford is clearly the biggest glaring hole for us. And that worries me, because the time is now for us to try to push forward. And, again, that big giant contract extension he was given just hangs like an albatross over this thing. His value is not where it needs to be, and there's nothing you can really do about it. And so, look, and the other thing I would point out too, guys, is that there aren't in this, my operating theory for the Premier League this season is that more sides are going to give up goals and there's going to be more fluid and open play than maybe ever before. And my theory about that has to do with the fact that many of these sides barely had a break, between the 2 seasons. You're having games thick and fast, League Cup games every week. There are going to be some tired bodies out there, and therefore there will be mental mistakes. There will be more scoring, I believe, because of those mental lapses. And so I don't need us to get a clean sheet every time to prove that we're a good team. I mean, if we can create chances, that's fine. Yeah. But ultimately, Jordan Pickford, though, in those games where the margins are fine, where we need him to not only just make a cool looking save, but also to be able to command his box, not, commit an unforced error that really costs us. I mean, these are all things that really begin to matter. And it goes back to my idea that I just want a boring goaltender who's going to give me a six or really give me a 7 out of 10 every week, even if he's not, quote, good on the ball and kicking it. And again, I don't even think Pickford's that great at it anymore anyway. That's what I want. I still want it. And yes, this does worry me.
Final word to you, Mose, on Pickford, then we'll quickly wrap up with some comments.
Yeah, just on the point that Rob made about 6 or 7 out of 10 every week, for a good 5 minutes after Fleetwood's second goal, I just sat staring longingly into space, craving Joel Robles being back, because that's how bad it is. It was just it's just your basic goalkeeper who comes out and does most of the time the right thing, whereas with Pickford, there's this all or nothing feel. And the seed of doubt that's planted, we saw 10 minutes after the goal where Michael Keane's running back towards his own goal, pretty much on his own penalty spot, and feels that spraying a 40-yard ball out to Nkounkou at left back is the better option, which he did technically very well. But I think if you cycle back half an hour in the game, he probably lays that off to Pickford and we clear our lines, and there's absolutely no chance of danger. I think the big worry for me with tonight's errors are, there has always been a seed of doubt about Jordan Pickford's ability to command the box. And that is something that we have consistently been able to put aside because his strengths are in distribution and in shot stopping. And more as we go along now, these errors, in particular with the latter, seem to be in areas of what we have classically held as relative strength for Pickford. Go back 2 seasons, I don't feel nerves when he's on the ball in any situation, and for the most part he is still comfortable in terms of basic kicking. But whenever what nights like tonight do is that when you see 2 attackers charging that goalkeeper down, you can guarantee that Brighton and Crystal Palace probably look at that now for the next couple of weeks and think, we're going to put this lad under pressure. We're going to take every shot we can. Every time that ball gets rolled back to him and there's one slight bobble on that Selhurst Park pitch, someone's going to be in his face because we know that we can get under his skin. And I think the second goal is, it's all of every Evertonian's worst fears about what Jordan Pickford can be. The hesitation coming out for the ball, the kind of scattergun approach to try and get himself back into a situation to just be there to save the shot. And when an inevitably tame shot does come in, it's the over dramatization of what a goalkeeper should be. As you rightly said, Matt, it's straight at him. He stands there, he makes a save. Okay, if he feels like a dive is essential, he gets a strong enough palm on it to palm it out to safety because there's enough Everton players there to cover the situation. But it always feels like he's trying to do far too much with every situation. Whether it's goal kicks or shot stopping, you get the sense that the whole personality overrides his role within the squad, and he's probably more Joe Hart than Joe Hart ever was now. And I think that was the main concern when he came in, is that the aura of being one of England's best goalkeepers, and Evertonians don't like to envisage this lad as England's number one, but that's how he sees himself. And it feels as though the desire to impress is way, way over and beyond the skill set that the lad has now, to the point where we are now coming to the end of a transfer window, looking at, as Rob said, what is hopefully going to be the start of a new successful era under Carlo Ancelotti. And that fella's got to go home tonight and think, is this a real priority for the next 4 or 5 weeks? And honestly, if he was to sit down and think, we need to go out and buy a goalkeeper, I don't really think many of us could have an argument with that at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. Just before we wrap up, I'll quickly rattle through some comments. Giovanni Botello said the money should be going in on a new goalkeeper. I'm concerned about Pickford. Ben Ellis saying, I was sitting there in complete relaxation in order to some of our play, and 5 minutes into the second half, I'm trying to rip the TV down off its brackets. Pickford made that unnecessarily uncomfortable. I think it's absolutely fair enough. in that sense. Daniel Wilson, lots of exciting signs so far this season, but can we realistically get European football with Pickford in goal? Ronaldo, Macari, fantastic football name that. Pickford needs to be gone. Palace will rip him apart. The keeper is the rock of the team. Pickford is a pebble, and it's not helping Everton at all. Get him up the road. Unknown. Pickford's time is over. Joey 11, T-Rex memes everywhere. Callum Whitley, Pickford doesn't have any competition, so he can do what he likes without worrying about being dropped. A lot of people asking us to speak about Nkounkou. We started the show with that because he was that good, obviously. So you can go back. You can go back and listen to it. Just Giovanni said as well, I started following Everton since James and Mina. So welcome to the Blues, mate. But he said he thinks Romero could be better as well. A few shouts for Romero actually in the comments there as well. But we are go on, Rob.
Man, I want to address, because I saw this in two of the comments. Can we not do the thing about Moise Kean is not smiling enough? I mean, give me a break. All right, he scored 2 goals. He scored 2 goals in 2 games. You all complaining about him not scoring. He's scoring goals. So just, it's 5-2 at the very end of the game on a cold, rainy night. There's no one in the crowd. It's not a big deal, okay? Richarlison doesn't smile when he scores tonight either. I mean, it's not a big deal, guys.
If he goes wild and does a knee slide, scoring the 5th goal against the fourth team, everyone says what an idiot, all that sort of thing. So I suppose he can't win in that sense, but at least he got on the score sheet. Just a quick reminder to everybody watching this, in your bottom right-hand corner, there will be a button to press, and that makes you subscribe, and you'll get notified whenever we do any of these live videos or put any other videos up. Do give the little thumbs up or like as well. It's dead easy to do. It may not seem like much, but it helps get the video out there, more people watching, more people involved, and that means we can do more of these than ever. Also, we've got more and more people subscribing to our stuff over on Patreon. We're doing tons of new shows, patreon.com/The Blue Room Extra, including Dave Downey's first ever Blue Room 101 tomorrow, which should be fantastic. I'm really looking forward to that. I will have Blue Room breakfast in the morning, just bringing you all the reaction from the game tonight, including Carlo Ancelotti's quotes. Alex Iwobi, I think, has been doing the press as well. So just all the reaction on that. But thanks very much to everyone for tuning into this. Ultimately, Everton are into the next round. They've won 4 from 4 so far this season. We're all made up. Let's make it 5 from 5 against Crystal Palace at the weekend. We'll speak to you then. Nice one.